Well, where they talked about before, all those trees, right, New Line Church,
Yeah.
from there down to Sandy Road. Strip has got to be, cut. No, the parallel, the rest of those trees, it's open. You see what I mean? So that's what they're talking about,
We expecting any more tonight?
I just texted Ken. Chad is gonna be out. I know that.
Daniel is working with Hand Engineer. They wants to make a phone
Responding.
It's nothing more than, anyway, what they're saying is not a problem.
Okay.
You have a blueprint?
I started with one, but somehow I didn't make it, but I didn't.
We'll get it signed.
He's on his way.
Right.
He said that.
We usually have blue pens up here. Now, James, you know that I like sitting in that chair.
Okay.
I said the other night after the meeting, I said, I sure do like the mayor's chair.
Say, I am not married to this chair, so they can have it.
They're gonna buy it.
Gonna amend a little bit. We're gonna kind of look at the Maverik site plan and the issues I found with that. Just kind of give y'all a heads up on the next. Copy.
The issues based on our current zoning, or not zoning, but current
Right.
codes.
So they have submitted their plans. I have them here. If anybody wants to look at them. This is not the physical building. This is the site. It's
Stopped at quite a few of those on my trip to California. Over the 12 days. They were all pretty big and they were all pretty nice.
They are, but the only analogy I can come up with is since it wasn't permissible. It's really not permissible to have a fuel center over there, and we've approved that. Now we're trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
So we've got one variance issue to this, and it makes sense. We're going to have to bend a few more things to make that fit. These are the violations in the current zone that I see that we've got to reconcile before, because they're going to eventually come back and do their official site plan application with us. And these issues are going to be before us and you, all of us, to address before we give them approval.
On the recommendation here for the sidewalks, you recommend to include them to kickstart future corridor
Yeah,
development?
so, I mean, we're looking at some fairly dense future development over there, and we're talking about frontage on going to be a very busy street that intersects some neighborhoods over there. So we've already compelled Clayton Homes to put a sidewalk in. There's absolutely no reason to start this train when we kick people off with variances on sidewalks. But again, that's my recommendation. It is the code, they have to do it.
Let me add one thing to it. I think I told y'all before, let me just start off at the 10,000-foot level, make this short and sweet. We had our second meeting with the RDOT director and Jessie Jones. She's the chief engineer for RDOT on transportation, along with Mark Jordan. Is it Mark Jordan, our senator?
Johnson.
Mark Johnson, David Ray, our legislator, myself, Palmer County Judge. Alan was supposed to be there. He's got some health problems with his family. He couldn't be there. This was our second meeting. We met at the Ashleys. This is in regard to wanting to get a second exit off of Highway I-40, somewhere down close to, where it takes, you come off of Interstate Drive and you take a left, what's that road? Something Bridges Road?
Gibson Bridge.
I'm sorry?
Gibson Bridge.
Gibson Bridge Road. Long story short, we can't do that. And here's why. It is you have to, it's not RDOT, it is a federal application that has to be made. The federal government has to approve it. And they will no longer approve a 1 point of traffic. That's what that would be, where you come off of the I-40 and going, basically right here.
So it matches that side.
That's right. But that was not, they were explaining to us when this was all built, this was temporary. That's why this is here. And so later on, the politicians and everybody, our doctors said, well, we're just going to leave it there, which makes sense. The point is, the only way that can work is that it has to be a 4 point, meaning you go in north, south, east, and west off of the interstate over there. So it means that you would have to build an overpass
Tell them
to that.
We'll take it.
And that's what we told them. And that's what Jared said. Jared Wiley is the director. They've been over backwards with it. So there's a lot of discussion on that. We're not going to get that. There's no way that we can get it. It's the federal government that Jesse said they would take one look at it. No. So there's no need to go through that. Second thing we were going to do when you come off the overpass, there, you see the body of Lake Conway, and then to the right, you see what looks like a bayou. That bayou, even when it was draining, on the body of the main lake you could actually see the shore. I mean, it was dry, whereas we still have water over in the bayou. The reason for that is that you've got culverts. When they widened it, they didn't put it down low enough so it can drain. That is a huge problem for us because of the stormwater permitting process. And I've already talked with them about that. So the idea is we were requesting that, one, those culverts got to be torn out. And so what we were asking for is that there would be an elevated bridge put there. If there was an elevated bridge, you don't have the restriction of the water coming from the bayou out. Right now, just like all this rain that we've had, the bottleneck is once it goes underneath the interstate, it has to find its way through all that vegetation and into that bayou. It needs to be cleaned out through there, and that's what we're hoping for. So having said that, getting back to the sidewalks, what our intent is that there's a 10-acre tract up there where you start to go on the on-ramp going on I-40. There, it starts out at a point and it goes parallels that exit or that on-ramp. There's roughly 10 acres there. We're going to go through game and fish, and hopefully we will acquire that by just permit something like we did down at Polarum Park, that they would allow us to use that and we would turn that into a city park. The idea, how this relates back to the bridge, is that we want a walking trail, that the Ashleys are wanting to put a walking trail around their property at some point and parallel the water going around, almost like a boardwalk, that type of thing. So that's why the sidewalk is important for the long-term vision of people being able to walk over that whole area. It'd be really nice. So the RDOT people, Jesse called me back last Friday and said, what we're going to do is she's found a slot of time that she could to the surveyors to come in the first or second week after the 4th of July to survey that whole area to get the necessary data to hand over to their other engineering group department so that they can take a look at it. Jared asked me in the meeting, he said, Danny, would it be a problem? Because with the elevated bridge, we want to be able to get boats in there, almost like on 89, just past Bates, you can get a boat, fishing boat underneath the 89 highway go from the north part into to the south part. What we're trying to do is, there is a potential that if we could get boats in there, get a nice restaurant over there on the corner, down the road. That's what we've had some conversations with some. The second part, but the main part, is that would not restrict the water. And again, what we were asking for, a walking trail to come down 89 and be able to come under or parallel that bridge when it was filled. Well, Jared said, asked, would you have a problem if we were to put square culverts in there? The square culverts are basically 10 feet wide, and they can be as tall as you need them to. I didn't have a problem with that, because they could put two right side by side, and you've got plenty of water flow, plus we'd be able to get boats in there. He said that was going to be much cheaper, and it would move quicker in terms of the overall process. When Jessie called me, she said, Danny, we have to look at it from a standpoint. If you have a walking trail, that bridge has got to be elevated enough so that it's going to be out of the floodplain, because you don't want any kind of walkway being able to be flooded for water to get on top of it. So she said that would mandate how much increase that they would have to have for that kind of bridge. So she said that if they come in and survey it roughly in the July timeframe, they will be able to present us with a document by Christmas, if everything works out, how much that's going to cost, and if it's doable. Of course, Arkansas Game and Fish has got to be involved with that too, but we don't see that as being a problem, because they were okay with the roading, widening and put those culverts in. My point though, that translates back why it's necessary to have these sidewalks. Clayton Homes has already I think they've already installed their sidewalks.
I haven't been over there to verify. But
Somebody said that they were,
It's on the plans.
that they had already poured their sidewalk. I haven't been over there as well. But anyway, Maverik is going to have to do that. Now, picking up there, go ahead and talk,
Sure.
finish with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are culverts safe to take boats through? And
Oh, yeah.
Will they be any liability for the first genius that takes their boat through there if they have low water and digs their prop on the culvert?
They would have the depth. They would sink the culvert. In other words, they're not going to put it just down on the very bottom.
Oh.
They would size that culvert so that you're going to have plenty of room in case, like low water,
Right.
that you would be bottoming out on the bottom of Lake Conway.
Okay.
Yes, there's a lot involved. I didn't go into all of
I
that.
can see some guy going through there with low water and with his
Right.
props.
But they would sink that
Okay.
and anchor it.
Yeah, normally they put a depth, on the side of the bridge.
Yeah.
It tells you your height, your maximum height.
Yeah.
Or your minimal height, and then your depth, as far as a gauge. On most, most waterway bridges.
They put a lot of signs on the highway too. People are over there too. So,
But, I mean, you have a bridge, they run into bridges
you're
with
right.
poles.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
just want to make sure.
you're gonna have somebody that's gonna work to.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure we're, as a city, not going to be on the hook for
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
jacking off their boat because they make a bad choice.
No, that's strictly RDOT.
Okay.
Because they have the final say-so
Okay.
as far as the entire engineering of that and
Yeah.
what it would look like in this type. But
Okay.
they are trying to accommodate us for our future plans.
Yeah.
If you can visualize it, having a park over there, and then people could actually walk or ride their bike under there.
Yeah.
If there was a restaurant or even shopping.
Yeah.
And for the long term, we're looking at that type of thing.
There's some real nice bridges around, or walking paths that go under bridges and next to waterways around the country that we would definitely, it would look fantastic.
Well, again, for them to meet with us twice
Yeah.
with that, they're wanting to help us. And I can't say enough good things about it. Our senator, our legislator, Jared Wiley, and then bringing in his head engineering person, just the time that it took. They stayed with us about 2.5 hours. So you think about it, they're over the entire state and devote that much time to us in the second meeting. So
The meetings are expensive. I mean, when they meet, that's their salary, travel, all that stuff. So they're invested in it. They wouldn't spend the time. if-
they feel like this is doable.
Yeah.
And they want to be a part of it because it's going to add to their overall transportation plan. They're gonna get attaboys for, in the long run. It may be 10 years down the road when all of this is developed and stuff, but you gotta start someplace. And that's what they're doing. They're looking at, they don't want to put something and halfway do it. And so that's a good thing for us. So anyway.
We got enough halfway,
The reason I was bringing this up is because of the sidewalk issue. Over there, we have that requirement. That's not going to go away.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Just want to make sure we're on the same page as
Yeah.
far as what we're doing, why, and all that stuff. So,
Well, I mean, the code requires sidewalks, period.
Yeah.
So the option, the only other remedy is to pay for the total cost of the construction of the sidewalk in lieu of not putting one in. So if you're paying all the money up front,
You might as well do it.
you might as well lose yourself.
At one point, we kind of looked at moving away from sidewalks. So
Well,
I wanted to be sure.
In certain areas.
Yeah,
Over there, it's gonna be a requirement.
okay. And that's what I wanted to make sure we were on the same page for. Sounds good to me. Commissioners, any questions?
Well, I'm sorry, Randy Holman called me. He just got back from the doctor. He has a bad sinus infection and he has bronchitis.
I figured he was probably just still working with this heart and stuff.
Well, this is not good for him.
Right.
So he called me to let me know. I'm sorry, I should have told you initially.
Kent's walking in now.
Okay, good.
He's so tall that time doesn't get to him very quick.
Yeah.
Well, and I had finally found, Mr. Holman a book. What they-
Well, if you let me have it, I'll take it to
Sure.
him. Yeah. Good, thank you.
Cause he's been over here just winging it without anything.
Right. Okay, Chris?
Oh, if he's walking in, I can wait for him.
Okay.
Keep on going. And again, this is just the review of the site as it sits, as it relates to the Heart of Mayflower and the overlay requirements. So the first thing I noticed was the sidewalk. That is required, and I think we should compel them to do that and not pay the money. I think we want them to put that in.
Yeah, I think if that's the goal for that corridor, absolutely. They're gonna kind of anchor that
Sure.
whole area, so.
The second piece of the code requires is a 5-foot planting zone, so we've got a minimum 5-foot sidewalk. It's right next to a minimum of a 5-foot planting zone. On their plans, they have a landscaping plan, and they have 93-gallon like holly bushes as a screenscape fronting Interstate Drive. But there's no indication how wide that space is on their plans. So they have provided the landscape screen, but we need to ensure that the plan says 5 feet, and looking at the plan, it's not 5 feet.
No, it's not.
I mean, I'm just inferring, because there's no numerical value assigned to that space.
No scaling.
Right, and so there's no way for me to judge, but relative to everything else on there, I doubt that's 5 feet. So they've already established it, we just need to have them expand it and ensure we got a 5-foot sidewalk and a 5-foot planting zone before, so you Interstate Drive planting zone, or excuse me, Interstate Drive sidewalk planting zone, then they start their parking lot. And anything on Interstate Drive, any future development's gonna require this, anything over there. That whole road, you're looking at 10-foot.
Yeah, that's not much. Sidewalk in the planting zone.
No,
That's
Yeah,
5 feet.
minimum.
They'll just slap a flag.
And that's in here
They'll
too.
just slap a flag on their plans.
that's,
Yeah,
there's all sorts of different requirements in there, so
Yeah.
I'm just basing the code off our existing.
What we
stuff
got
right now.
existing.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
So that one, we can bring a lot of that over, but sidewalk requirements and stuff like that, well, I don't think we've gotten to that yet. We can and we will. So the third one had to do with the build to zones and the setbacks. The minimum and maximum was exceeded on our plans. And the way our codes read, essentially what we term in the heart of Mayflower is the build to zone, is that front property line to your front facade of that principal building. So in this case, that would be the actual fuel center, the convenience store itself. And so we're saying you gotta come off at least 10 foot from the front property line, and that's gonna account for the sidewalk and the planting zone.
Right.
And then, but you can't go any further back with the front of your building than 75 feet. So that's as far as you can push that building off Interstate Drive. 75
That's what
feet.
currently code is in, on the book.
Oh, do they have the room to do that?
Plan, I'm sorry?
Is there enough room to do that there?
Well, so their front facade is 165 feet
Oh.
back versus the 75 maximum.
That's gonna mess them up, huh?
And
Yeah,
then we've also got the parking lot under that same criteria. Their front parking has to be within that 10 to 75 foot zone as well.
This part of Mayflower was not designed for fuel stations.
Well, and again, so we're looking at this lens of, like you said, the heart of Mayflower, which explicitly disallowed this use over there. So we're trying to, we're gonna have to bend a few things to make it fit.
Right.
Like a variance, basically, and is that what we're talking?
Or I think I truly feel like it's worth a shot to go back and explain this to Olson and Maverik and say, look, this is what we'll come back with. What accommodations can you make that's not going to adversely impact your project in a significant way? What are you willing to bring to the table as far as changes? And then we see what we need to do based on their reply.
You have to remember, Chris and I have gone over this. Chris had a great idea. Let's go to you guys first before we sit down with Maverik and get a flavor for what you as the commissioners would be willing to do. And at the end of the day, whatever you're willing to do, have a letter that itemizes each one of these and what is your recommendation for how to handle this. The sidewalk is that where there's no accommodation. That's got to go. Okay, you see what I mean? So that's what Chris is walking through here, trying to, at a 10,000 foot level, trying to educate you guys in terms of what we're faced with. We haven't talked to Maverik about this yet, but
I think a 90-foot revision is probably gonna be a heavy lift. And I think, since this layover was not, designed for fuel stations, and like Chris said, explicitly excluded, I think that, I'm no engineer, but I don't see how they're gonna come up 90 feet and still have fuel pumps, that are in the middle of interstate.
well, that wasn't the contention of Chris. What he was talking about, when we talk with them, he's going to explain, and they're well aware. They've got documentation on the prints that show that they knew that it's 75 foot, but they interpreted it wrong. Okay, so what we're trying to do is, would they be able, thinking that could they come up a little bit, to compromise, that type of thing. Here's the problem that we've got. We've got a fuel station that is wanting to build here. We do not have any smaller businesses that is waiting in line to be built over there. Again, there was a thought from the previous administration and with Metro Plan, the idea of a bike trail, a walk around Mayflower and this type of thing. We don't have that unless you just start it all over again. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying that's not applicable to us.
But when we get things in like a restaurant over there on the bayou, things that people want to walk between and see, then we can put those things in and we can even incorporate them into building.
And that's what we're talking about as far as the sidewalk and this type of thing.
Versus if we go build those, we're gonna have to pay for them. We're gonna have to pay for them.
We need revenue.
Exactly.
We need that, man.
Yes.
We need those restaurants. We
But
need,
keep in mind, you're talking about like 5 acres. We're not talking about a little individual plat that, that 75 feet makes more sense and you're not selling fuel and this type of thing. What they've done is incorporated a footprint for safety. It's like if you go down to a QT, you've got those pumps out in front, and this one is even going to have more space, I believe, from where those pumps are down, that it's quite easy to get a trailer to turn around down there.
Yeah.
This is going to be easier. And so the whole design, if we didn't have this ordinance or code, it wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
We would all be applauding their design. It's just we're caught between a rock and a hard place, just like what you're saying.
If they come up a little bit, commissioners, would you have a problem granting a variance?
Absolutely not.
Well,
If the heart of Mayflower is the problem,
It is. Well, it's not a problem.
but that's where all
Yeah,
the
that's.
discrepancies are. Is it, I mean, it's not, maybe it's a zoning thing.
Yeah, that's what the UDO will correct this, but right now they're building under Heart of Mayflower, so that's what we have to work with. But you're right, the UDO will correct this barrier.
And you gotta keep in mind, Chris has done a good job looking at this. And Chris is not saying we shouldn't do this.
No.
Chris is saying, this is what's on the books.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
have to make some kind of provision. Y'all have
to work it out.
That's right.
We gotta
What
do
we
it.
do.
Isn't that right?
Well, I guess what I was getting at was instead of putting 3, 4, 5 variances in place, can we just check, and we know that we're changing our zoning anyways to match UDO, would it make more sense to change the requirements in the heart of Mayflower?
And I think that is the path of least resistance, but initially, but I think you would encounter some pushback with the city council.
Okay,
That's why when y'all have a consensus as to what you want to do, what recommendations you want to make to the council, that needs to be in writing, coming from you and whether you.
It needs to be like a report that I give to.
That's right, as far as what your recommendations, you as a commission feel like we need to do about this.
what, I mean, I know we're kind of guessing, but what do you think their issue is? Because it's gonna go away.
Well, ultimately, they're the decider, so
Oh, so you're thinking they're gonna have an issue with this?
I'm not saying that, I'm saying that, I can't speak to the future, but they could have input. We could come up with all the recommendations and they could come in and say, well, we need to look at this, this, and this before it's approved. So there's multiple layers here that we gotta work through.
So basically, to change Heart of Mayflower, it's out of our hands. We can put the recommendation up, see what the city council does. But giving variances to the Heart of Mayflower, that's within our control?
Essentially.
I believe just on the comments that we're hearing, that we're all on the same page. But you have to remember, Chris is pointing out what is the law right now,
Sure.
or the rules that we as a city in the past has put in place. Now we've got to do something about it.
Well, I think maybe we could do both. So if we're okay with giving them, with working with them and giving them a variance that they needed, then, we can let them know, hey, let's negotiate whatever we come up with, whatever we're at a gap with, we can fill with a variance. In the
So-
meantime, take also Stephen's suggestion and also go to the council and see if we can update
The zoning.
the zoning layer. And that's it. I mean, I can write up a good justification and deliver, I can even bring it to the workshop with you guys. And we can do the next workshop, whatever it is.
So y'all can
We can
visually see.
Mhm.
They say,
162, that's supposed to be no more than 75.
And I did know that they're good.
So even if they were to flip it, like some of the newer development in Conway, bring the front of the building, have everything back, you're gonna have cross traffic with semis, so you really can't bring these behind the
Has already
building.
gone before
Because you're gonna be running an 18-wheeler.
therefore.
And it says front of building.
It has
I'm
been
just saying we can't, maybe.
Yeah.
Whereas
It says front.
other
Yeah, it says
locations across the
whatever they
United
determine the
States,
front to be,
they have put
75
a pause on those.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
want
I
to.
see.
They want this, they
I don't see a
that
lot
this
of,
is going to be
wiggle
a
room there.
great
I don't know.
location.
I mean, how you gonna narrow this up in here, make it safe?
so this front parking also has to be within
We've
the
got to have a
75-foot zone as well.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
absolutely. Across 89, so they're really.
And they really discourage any front parking, they want anything in the back and the sides.
So,
But it's not outright.
Well, the competition is going to be good for the customers.
yeah, absolutely, yes.
Could just be a transparency thing, they,
Look at
city council and say, we need to change the heart of
services.
If you don't, we're just gonna do.
Directly across the street from each other as well as right beside each other.
It does, and that's kind of why I'm shy away.
We don't know what we want to do. As a planning committee or.
As an RV, so I'm sure it's a pushback.
This is the landscape screen that they provided.
It,
But they acknowledge the holiday feature. They talk about the streetscapes.
the council,
5 feet wide.
Right.
What was their original
You can see
plan?
They read these things.
To
They
start.
incorporated what we require.
council
Yeah.
got
They
upset
didn't put in
that we gave some variances to,
10 foot, 75 foot.
Clay Heights.
They're talking,
And so.
they're starting here.
They
The
have
property
voiced their
line to the
opinion,
landscape screen is that 10 foot they provided.
About any new
The
development.
way the Heart of Mayflower defines it
Good stuff.
is the front building.
But before all this, what was the
starting
original?
development. So that's the
Now, what do you
sticking
mean
point.
temporary?
For Maverick to begin
So
development.
they gotta do
Oh, they
something.
haven't
How
stopped.
to do the 5 foot, and that
We-
doesn't quite look
You know,
like
y'all
5
had
feet
already
today.
approved,
Yeah.
you know, the site plan and this type of stuff.
Well, so it's Mayflower has interfered with development in plan.
Well, it is right now.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, it's interfered with that.
Pretty close.
Here we are trying to get.
It ain't far off.
That's exactly.
But it's not codified, it's
Yeah,
not
right.
there, so
Like
it's
you.
fine.
It's not
I
fine.
think,
You know, I don't see how
the vision for
How
Mayflower was intended
you could
10
really,
years ago. when
as far as their design,
Right.
to make it safe for
And we-
parking
we weren't
and
talking-
traffic
we're not
movement
saying that
from
was
there
bad.
back to here.
We're just saying it's.
Interfering with
Hey,
cost.
It's all
It
Yeah.
wasn't practical.
trucks go,
Because
sorry, trucks go this way, RVs
You know,
go
we don't
this way,
have
and they keep
anybody
moving.
else lined
Passing
up.
cars in front.
There's a small, commercial vendor, retail.
My first out was like coming down Oak Street.
Food service.
Right.
We
You take
have
that, you
the
bring the
fuel
front building
station
all the way to
that
the.
is already,
But they're
they're entering into,
But
that
they
already
don't
in the
have
contract,
18-wheelers.
or done their due diligence that.
No, you don't.
I didn't like that design of the
Vision has
It's, I
approved.
mean, it doesn't show what they really are,
And
what they're,
now-
and the big access from this, or visual from the interstate. You know,
Yeah, that's what we do when we have some place, we don't have to mess with all the nuances and, yes, but the sun is in its third apex, so we have to do this, as we stand on our left foot and raise our right hand over.
We are literally between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
I am pro-business,
Yeah.
okay? My contention is, when he showed me this, you know, the 70 to the 10 foot, 75 foot and this type of thing, that may have been practical for a eatery, a retail or whatever. But when a fuel station comes in, and you're not talking about just a little small lot that would be translated back to a McDonald's or you know, fast food. You're talking about 5 acres. They have bought enough property that they can maneuver in this, and that's why they did this.
Yeah, this Heart of Mayflower was it just wasn't designed with the scale in mind. So it's just silent. So we're in order to get them in here, we're basically just gonna have to write our own rules. And we'll either have to, either council will have to adjust this, and or the commission. or-
But now keep in mind,
We got
just going back to what Stephen was talking about, the Heart of Mayflower overlay is still going to be in effect. The only thing that we're doing is going to allow a variance to, if y'all agree,
Right.
to this project
So this, yeah, to Maverik,
until something is either abolished.
unless we change the overlay. Yeah.
So when was that set up, Heart of Mayflower? How many years ago?
2015.
10 years ago. It was just a very different vision for what Mayflower would look like today
Right.
versus what reality. And so, well, the mayor said, it's not like what they did was wrong or bad.
Right.
It was done based on a vision
Sure.
that didn't happen. So now we have to adjust, we have to adapt. And so,
Does,
trying to.
does the council understand that we need to adjust for things like that, or are they?
Does the council want the truck stop?
I can't speak for the council.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's wise. Sorry to put you on the spot there.
I'm giving my views. What is it going to hurt to allow that to be 165 feet back? If you look at the plans,
That,
they've
I
got
agree.
they've got a piece of property that they're buying.
That will accommodate it.
That will accommodate that.
I totally agree.
So that's why you as a commission need to be on the same page that if you all agree that James can write this up and through every one of these findings, make your recommendation for that. And then based on that, the council needs to, they're either gonna say yes or no. And it's not going to be pretty if they say no. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand exactly.
I'm pro-business.
Yes.
I believe in solving the problem.
Amen.
Again, what is it, what,
The only way we're gonna make Mayflower grow is have something. And have the revenue from it to make it happen.
we need the revenue.
Or, we need it, I know. I mean, I've said this for years here.
Gotcha.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That's why when Chris and I went through this, I'm like you. If we did away with the overlay
Right.
and go back and whatever you
Rezone.
call it, and go back with common sense,
Right.
yeah, that just doesn't seem to be the flavor.
I just wonder what they thought this was, where they were measuring.
No, this is cut and dry. We've got to agree to one another. We already agree.
Yeah.
All we got to do to get James to move forward. And, this is,
But
this is
you,
common sense.
you understand why we have to bring this to you
Yeah.
and talk through
Sure.
this? Because you as the commission, that's what you need to put in place
Right.
for, is to, to take a look at how we can, you're basically providing the guidance and the path for us to grow. You're the oversight. And with that, whatever your recommendation is, go into the city council so that they're okay with it too.
I really feel like we ought to start with the variance. And just let them have the variance.
Yep.
And then see what the council says and
Yeah.
Does the council have a say in the
Well-
variance?
I'm sure they're gonna want to stomp their feet if they don't agree.
We can advise them.
Sure.
Keep them in the loop. But, we won't need permission for a variance, but we can definitely just advise them and listen to any input. They
Sure.
might have an idea that we didn't consider, and then.
Heck, yeah.
And then, go forward. I think ideally, we'd rather the zoning be updated so we don't have so many variances on the books.
Have they been approached for that?
I'm sorry?
Has the council been approached for that?
No.
Rezoning?
Well, we rezoned part of it the last time we met, just to, fix a couple things over there.
There was 3 layers of zoning.
Yeah.
Chris can explain this. He did a great job with the council. But basically, there are 3 layers of zoning from the years up here. And one layer of zoning was in conflict, what it was saying, to what the next layer had laid out.
And sometimes that layer would say that it supersedes another layer, sometimes it doesn't, it's silent. So it's like, so which one do we go with?
Right.
So it's just, there's gaps, and there's, I mean, you have something, when you put something over a hole 3 times, you'd expect it to be completely covered, but it's not. There's gaps in there, and a savvy, as Chris put it, a savvy lawyer could eat our lunch.
Well, and again, the council is trying to look at what is on the books.
Sure.
What is our guidelines? If you don't have those guidelines, then a lot of things can happen that we wouldn't want to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so I understand that side of it. It's just, we felt like Chris gives the overview of these issues, then you as a commission make a decision as to what you or what your recommendation would be on each one of these. James writes this up and it's presented to the council.
And I'm typically very hesitant to give my recommendations because I'm not appointed, I'm employed by the city. So my opinion should not carry any weight. So very rarely will I do. I did offer some recommendations here, but those are solely mine. But, you know,
Did they say why they're moving from a monument sign to a 30-foot sign? That's a pretty big jump.
So this kind of, it got weird with the signage and trying to follow what they were proposing. And what they're asking right now is to relocate their 100-foot sign that y'all approved last December, they got approved. It was gonna be on the west corner of their property. They wanna take that 1,000 feet off their property and put it down by Clayton Homes. And they're gonna work out a private agreement with the Ashleys and Clayton Homes, whomever is impacted by this, and relocate that sign there. And once that big sign is located, they want to nix the monument sign, bring in a 35-foot pole sign over there, and nix that monument sign. And as Mayor Hester pointed out, once that sign leaves your commercial property, it now becomes a billboard. Because you're advertising a commercial message off-site.
That's not going to work.
Right.
We've got to convince them. First of all, that's where they wanted it, on that southwest corner of the property that they're going to have, their purchase. And you guys approved it. And if you'll remember, they did a study and they said at that point, 125 feet. Y'all approved up to a maximum height of 125 feet.
That's right.
They're saying if they move that sign down, they can drop that sign 25 feet and have this, you know, the sight of the sign would be more visible, and they could go with that. We've got to tell them, no, you were approved with this back then. And so that's something that we can, you know, if you'll remember, we've already got laws on the books as far as the distance between the billboards. And that is going to be a whole new can of worms that we're not going to ask for a variance. We're going to explain, hey, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, we've tried, we're on your side, but we just can't keep doing that. And they thought because it was, you know, could work out a purchase where the location of the sign is. No, but you have to remember, Clayton Homes wanted to put up a 75-foot sign or something, and we said no because we had a maximum of 30 feet or whatever, and we told them no. We don't want, again, it's almost like rubbing it in their face if we allow them to put that big sign there. The point is that though, you guys approved, you know, the site plan with that. First you approved the sign, then you approved the site plan, and it was designated at that corner on this property. Now, Chris, explain about the monument sign and all of that was at the same time agreed to.
So on the their original proposal, the western entrance was the 125-foot sign. On the eastern entrance was going to be their monument sign. And I'll preface all of this to say, as far as the Interstate Drive overlays, it disallows pole signs and pylon signs completely. So, they've got a variance on height, and they got a variance on the actual sign structure itself.
Right.
Monument signs are typically the only signs that are authorized over there right now. So they're wanting to nix the monument and put another short pole sign over there.
So how tall would be the monument sign?
They're looking at 30 feet. So the current one, the big boy, they've dropped it down to 100. And then the next one, is 35 feet that they wanted to replace the monument sign. But again, that whole pole sign, pylon sign is not allowed. Interstate Drive doesn't allow it.
Right.
And any overlay, not even Interstate Drive, anything in the heart of Mayflower will not provide for a pole sign.
I think they're gonna see that they don't need that once they bring that sign, the 125 or 100-foot sign back there. Then it only makes sense to go with a smaller sign, like Chris is talking about. Because the pole, the 100-foot or 125-foot, that's not an option.
Right.
We are not getting into all of this as far as these, gosh, my mind went blank. The big sign, what is it called, Barbara? The,
This is the
sorry?
monument sign
billboard.
Okay.
that
That
was
was-
originally on the
that
eastern
was-
entrance.
We don't want to get into
That's what I'm
that.
proposing to keep
Right, Barbara?
versus putting in a 35 foot. So that's the monument. And they're wanting to replace it with this.
Would they be within 1,000 feet?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
You see what I'm saying?
we already approved that to 125.
But you have
So
to
this
remember,
is the one that's
they
been.
weren't approved
Right.
by you guys
That's
on the
right.
I
site
just want to change
plan
the location.
to move it down.
Offsite.
To me-
This was after the fact.
All right,
that's one of
so
those
sidewalk, that's
concessions that's
easy.
got to be
These
made,
two are the
that they gotta
hard
bring that
ones.
sign back
This
up
one's easy.
on their property.
These two are the hard ones.
We're trying to.
This is
give
a
and take,
no-go.
But
Just stick with the phase one, just like this one here. The signage of all
we have to
the
remember, they're
entrance.
wanting to get that
That was that
price
small.
up there,
This
you know.
Oh, yeah.
So they're also proposing some additional signs that it's pretty common with this
Well,
stuff.
but no, they were planning to buy, they've already worked out a deal that, the Ashleys would sell them this spot where they were wanting to move.
These
it
are
down
fairly
south.
large entrance
It
signs.
would be on the
6
south
by
side
5, yeah.
of the existing Clayton Hall.
No, I think that's needed.
Yeah, I do too.
And
Not on
I think that was my recommendation.
I'm just saying, someone
As
that
it
lives
sits
close
right now, I guess we
proximity.
classify it as a monument sign, but you're only allowed
just
one
can't do
monument
that.
sign
No, if
per
it's
property.
10,000
And then these other two, I feel like are needed as well. Lighting so that no one wrecks as they're pulling in, and then the fire lanes, that's
I don't care
That's
what
what
pretty
you
easy.
do.
this,
You know,
signs.
we're not gonna get into
Probably
that.
need,
Yeah.
even if there's two, because I mean,
that's not
we're
gonna
talking
go-
big trucks,
Bring the
RVs,
sign back
stock
up,
vehicles,
and we go
in and
from there.
out.
Yeah, they'll have to,
But the way the code's written now, no wayfinding signs are defined or authorized.
What about safety directional signs?
There's a 2-page list of what is and is not allowed, or basically what is allowed, and anything that's not listed is denied.
They've got to, again,
Yeah.
you asked for the moon,
right.
you know, that's,
Well, they probably know that if they ask for the move.
well, and that's why we're saying,
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we go over these issues.
Yes,
And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
The moving of the sign is not an option.
yeah.
Now, if they want to go back up to, from 100 feet to 125 feet, that's within their right. You
Yeah,
guys
that was
approved
We
it.
approved it.
Yeah. No, it's, but they're used to dealing with cities and planning commissions all over the country. So I've got to believe that we're one of the easier municipalities to work with.
I have already been told that, they recognize how easy it is to work with us.
Right.
That we have basically cut through all the red tape. We want them, we welcome them, but there's some things that we've got to we can't negotiate on it.
Mayor.
I'm sure their developers know for it.
Oh, yeah.
They're used to
Yeah.
the deal. They're used to asking for Cadillac to get Kia. You know what I mean? So that, I mean, they're used to, to negotiating it. So that this probably shouldn't be anything new for
The
them.
last zoning conversation that was had with the planning commission, that went well.
Yeah.
And it was because we had all the Heart of Mayflower and all these other ones, right?
Yep.
But we're worried that that same type of conversation might not go well this next time?
Well, we did get some pushback on some questions, so
Okay.
it's just anticipation that that might happen.
Okay.
But to your point, the more questions we anticipate and have answers to, the better we'll go because they will have questions. And then, what about this? Here's the answer.
Was a conversation ever brought up about the UDO and the Heart of Mayflower and all the zoning being combined into one
Yes.
easy that was talked about?
And that is why Chris is leading us through walking through
Yeah,
the
yeah.
UDO.
Right.
Once we do this, then we're going to have pretty much a consistent plan in place.
Mhm.
That once this goes forward and say, everybody's happy with it, once we make these revisions to this. If the council is happy with that, then if they approve this,
Yes.
everything else, this supersedes everything else. And that's what we're hoping for. We're not there yet.
I didn't like.
Right.
We're not there yet. And they are not going to want to say, okay, we're just gonna go ahead and do away with the Heart of Mayflower zoning. I think the right approach is what one of you said, let's go with it, just giving variance for this while
We're working.
still working on this.
Yeah.
You know, we've got some challenges.
Yeah.
But we're trying to get things correct. Hey, Sam, but we're trying to work this out.
Right.
So again, we want that business.
Yeah.
So did that kind of get us through, I think, take 3 anyway.
The sign situation.
Any questions on the signage?
I think we're all in the same
4 points. Signs, 165, variance, or whatever the variance may be. Sidewalk.
Sidewalk is no negotiation. It's got to go. I mean, it's got to be built. Yeah.
And they need to identify the measurements
Yes.
Yeah.
to make sure that they're within that, ordinance.
That's right.
A little bit more than an engineering note.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So the next part of it would be signage on the actual plan. So when I showed you the larger plan, the eastern side and the west, there's 2 entrances. That first entrance, the lighting plan has no street lighting over there on that first entrance. And we're talking about open culverts and people potentially driving off. They do in front of the library right here all the time. So the likelihood of somebody driving off Interstate Drive and missing that driveway connection, I think is real. And everything else in that facility is completely eliminated. But once you get to that entrance in that corner, it goes dark.
Yeah.
As Chris said, he was saying that he thinks that this was just an oversight. And
Yeah,
so we-
that
we-
sounds, I bet so.
Yes, we don't think that's not going to be a showstopper. You know, it's just, hey, you've got a dark.
You got a dark
here.
area there.
You know, we need this. And I think because would be the ones that would be sued. They don't want that. So I think it's like
And
Chris said.
it's not a requirement. We don't have a lighting plan requirement. So we can ask, but we can't compel.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good point. I
Yes.
like that. That's very good.
Yeah, they would be the ones to be sued. Chris pointed out, hey, this is what he saw. This is going to be dark here. We need to bring that to their attention. And we feel like it's going to be resolved with that.
And then that last little bit is just fire lanes, kind of to be determined. Because typically, the only thing I would ask for is something on the front. On that front curb, they're gonna have an air filling station, and then I would probably just ask for at least 75 feet, somewhere in there, for us to be able to pull a fire engine through and park it without having any obstructions in the way.
Yeah, is that where you would say of the culvert, the curb there? it would be-
Opposite the streetscape.
Yes, that it would say something like fire zone or
No
something?
parking, fire
No
lanes,
parking.
stuff like that. But that's to be determined, and I don't particularly care where those things are at, as long as we have some allowance for it somewhere on that property.
Yes.
So I'm very flexible on that. That's not something I'm gonna beat them up with. I'm agreeable with that.
But the good thing about it is, Chris has gone through here, he's done an excellent job in identifying and put, so it's best to address these things on the front end.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think there's any appetite? Because I think we're all in agreement here. But the biggest obstacle to overcome would be that 75 feet.
Yes.
I don't see how you could redesign.
Well,
everything.
I agree. I've been surprised in the past, and we already have to present them with some other things.
Mhm.
And I wonder if we should just present them with everything and say, hey, this is what you found, and this is in conflict with our current zoning. This is a problem for us. What do y'all think about it? And give them a chance to digest it, look it over, and say, more than likely, well, we can't change our footprint. This is how we interpreted it, and if that can't be the case, then we're out of here. Then we can address it.
And that was my initial thought. We present them with our findings and let them come back to us.
I think that's, because what would happen is, one, you probably, hopefully the sidewalks go, that's no longer included here, because that gets incorporated. Hopefully the lighting gets incorporated. Maybe they understand that we're not going to budge on their signage.
Sure.
And I think a lot of these would go away, and then you're just left with those two big ones.
Yeah. And really, one variance takes care of both of these. I mean, you just eliminate that setback.
Right.
That setback requirement takes care of the parking and the front facade requirement.
Yeah. And I think from my perspective, I like that better than giving, a total of,
Too many.
yeah.
And I think you're 100% right. And I think if they were willing to meet us on the small stuff, we can meet them on the big one. One variance takes care of the two big
Right.
tickets.
I agree with that. Yeah, that's good. Sure is.
So what we're briefly talking about is there's several variants that are needed if the planning commission wants to move forward. I think that we should let Maverik and their engineering team see this, and then let them digest it, think about it, say, hey, this is a problem. We got to get this stuff addressed. And what's probably going to happen is they'll probably understand all these and address them, except for the setbacks. Now, maybe they go, oh, you know what, if we do this and that, whatever, we use the design like we have over in West Texas, then maybe they come up with something like that too, but it gives us just one variance to have to issue,
Right.
hopefully.
Yeah, I agree there. Totally. Yeah, some of these could be moot points if they just agree to
Yeah.
adjust their.
Oh, yeah, the lighting check.
Exactly.
Oh,
Signage, yeah.
Yeah.
okay, we get it, yeah.
And whatever we're not able to close the gap on, then we can address those individual points with either a variance or a zoning update.
Yeah. That's, I think that part has to do a little bit more of camaraderie, almost like holding hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because if they don't understand that the UDO is our intent on moving forward as a planning commission, then there's a disconnect. Because, I mean, surely they understood that there's a problem with zoning just from y'all's last meeting. And that this is the solution to that.
No, and the mayor's been pretty clear too, that the UDO is our future.
Right.
So they know that we're moving in that direction.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's some on the council that are very excited and optimistic about it. I just can't speak for everybody.
Well, you say, I mean, I'm not trying to pry too much, but it sounds like some aren't.
Yeah. well,
Okay.
But those are very specific situations.
Okay,
And I
okay.
think if
Well, that's fine. They have a right to their opinion.
if we were to come in and say, hey, we're not just cherry picking, we're evaluating everything. We're looking at a total solution, not just patchwork, which is what we've historically done.
Yeah.
And then we go through this entire vetting process, we digest it, and I'm adamant we'll have at least one, if not two town halls, get the public input. We're gonna do it right, and I think we'll have a very fine polished product at the end of the day that everybody in buy-in on, not just, a group of select people. So.
I agree, Marshall.
I don't think we're gonna have issues getting it across the finish line.
Yeah. Okay, good. So, I mean, what needs to happen? I mean, could we just, as a consensus, say that Maverik should be provided this document minus the solution and recommendations?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's something that I gave to the mayor.
And basically just see what they come up with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
I
the
think
mayor,
I think that's a good approach.
yeah, I agree. The mayor can do any of this schmoozing
Yeah.
and business building and, if they have any questions or concerns or anything like that, so.
Yeah, because I think,
They're wanting to start turning shovels in September, so
yeah.
we're not far off.
Yeah, that's right around the corner.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're almost halfway through the year.
Yeah.
We've got, so the sooner we can get this information to them and start this review process, better off we'll all be.
Well, I think then that's the consensus. We'll take out the solution recommendation, approach them, say here, concerns, these are not showstoppers at this point, but we need to address them sooner rather than later. And then let us know what they've said.
Yep.
And then we can let's put it on the agenda for the next planning commission meeting.
Easily done.
That way, any questions that maybe haven't here, in case there are any questions that have arisen, and we didn't get them tonight, but.
Oddly enough, they still have not actually filed for an official site plan application and presented that. They've already gotten a preliminary approval, but they actually filled out an application yet.
Get it, Barbara.
And get money.
Go get them.
Yeah.
Barbara.
Need money.
They do have to come back regardless, and do it officially.
Well, and that's kind of a good hold for us, really.
Yeah.
So on the agenda, have Maverik.
Yeah, someone here that would be able to speak to these issues. Questions arise.
You're all kinds of prepared.
Easiest way to do it sometimes.
You can start shaking some good.
We do that once sometimes, we'll leave out some, I don't know if you're the person who's going to.
Yeah.
If you are,
So if there are no additional questions on Maverik, and we kind of bounce back into the UDO, and I know we kind of got into, I didn't get as far as these handouts as I wanted it. It's been an incredibly busy week, so I'm very glad we got that done. However, I do wanted to kind of backstep and revisit the manufactured homes, mobile home parks. We were kind of using some terms interchangeably, but there are some significant differences between various types of construction and how they play out in the UDO and even on existing codes. So we've got one that should have RMH, manufactured home residential highlighted. And so that's going to be, anything highlighted on this page is going to be the UDO. Yellow is the new stuff we're trying to get to. But these next two columns are our current code. So I lined everything up so we can easily compare and contrast. Knew where we're trying to get to versus where we're at right now. So the UDO only pretty much allows for one classification of manufactured homes. Where we currently have two. We got the R1MH and the R3 manufactured home park. The UDO consolidates all that into one zone. But before we get too deep into that, y'all go to the third page. I think it's important that we define what a manufactured home is, a modular home, and a site-built home, because it's very easy to throw that terminology around. But the example, thanks to Google AI on the right column, your mobile home is anything before 1976. So we use the term mobile home quite a bit, but we don't have a lot of those around here. I mean, there's some
So they're all basically manufactured.
manufactured homes post 1976, and that's when the federal
That's
regulations
what, yeah,
come in.
all right.
And so we're not, when we talk about zoning, we need to be careful with this, that we're not putting mobile home into play. Because it's not, we're talking about manufactured homes.
We've probably got some mobile homes. in this
Oh, I know we do, I've condemned some. However,
My manufacturer date's 1976, and I know there's some that are probably a little bit older than that.
we've got, as far as what we're going to allow coming in that's new, we're not going to allow any mobile homes to come in.
Oh, no.
We're talking about manufactured homes, which is also different than a modular home. Modular home is largely constructed off-site, but it's built to, your building codes and everything else, and it's kind of stitched together, built on-site. A lot of these modular homes, they can go $300,000-$400,000. You really can't tell the difference between a site-built and a modular home with some of this. So we've got really what's in play for us, modular homes and manufactured homes. Modular homes, as far as the UDO is concerned, is treated exactly the same as a site-built and like an R1. So if I wanted to go buy a modular home and put it into the venue, that definition would apply as a site-built home.
Because it's on a slab and it's.
Yep.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
So a modular home
Mhm.
is treated exactly the same as a site-built home, as far as the definition and the application of the code.
Okay, so stitching two manufactured homes together?
That wouldn't be the definition.
It wouldn't.
So according to this, no,
Okay.
and the way that they
Factory
define
built
it.
structure produced in.
So the left side is how the UDO defines all this stuff.
Okay.
The right side is kind of the summary and the comparison and contraction. It's,
So manufactured home, it's, when they're put somewhere, they're single, they're not stitched together. And they're built on a permanent chassis, whereas a modular home is put on a slab.
yes, so, even with the manufacturer, you have a single line, double line, you can still do some of that stitching together. But it's not the same, again, this chassis is portable, it's designed to be moved. Modular homes are also moved on site, but again, you're dealing with a slab. You're not dealing with a chassis that you put that home on. We're not dealing with underpinning and all that kind of stuff with modular homes. Where our current code and the UDO would require the appropriate underpinning to secure that wood space on any kind of manufactured home.
Yeah, you don't need kids crawling underneath those.
Yep. So, for me, it's been a learning, it's been a thing, and I just threw out the term mobile home interchangeably all the time, didn't think anything of it.
Yeah, same here. I didn't know anything about 1976 and the difference between a modular home and manufactured home. It's not clear on that either, so this is definitely helpful.
I'll be honest, I'm not super clear about the difference still between manufacturer and modular.
Manufactured is on a chassis, it just stays on a chassis. Modular gets dropped on a slab. Modular has to be more It's the structure is more like a site-built structure, or stick-built. It's gonna be more secure and sturdy. The manufactured home is more what we think of when we think of a mobile home. It's got that pinning underneath that has to be put because it's got its wheels and all that's under, all its plumbing underneath. It's more typically of what you think about when you think
Right.
of mobile home.
So
So
when,
modular home might not even know that it's not just a plain old stick-built house.
when you're driving to Conway, you look at Hawks Home and stuff on the side, they do have some of these modular homes on the property. I mean, these are not your traditional manufactured homes. And again, that's why they fall in with site built. If you're on a slab, you're connecting utilities, and once that facility is installed, it's permanent. It's not good.
Whereas a manufactured home, it's on a chassis, you pull it right out of there.
Can you not take the chassis off and put it on a slab?
You could.
And then is it at that point in time, is it a modular home?
Well, I would say no. I mean, just based on, we know it was purchased as manufactured.
Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at. It's just the definition itself. I mean, manufactured home has a little more insight here. But modular home, it's like,
Well, how'd they get the modular home there?
So you're bringing it in, but again, you're not.
on a
once it's on
removable
site.
Oh, removable.
So
Yeah, it's not a permanent chassis.
you're looking at basically the difference between slab and permanent utility connections. Basically your key difference, because once that modular home is planned, it's there.
So
Yeah.
I have not in the city, but a friend, they had what I would consider a modular home, but it sits on concrete blocks. Is that not a modular home because it doesn't sit on a flat slab?
So the way the UDO defines a lot of this is you're looking at a foundation, you're looking at a slab, we're going to permanently block you.
That's a manufactured home.
Well, and we're looking through the lens of the UDO.
Right.
Yeah, I think what we're highlighting maybe is that it could use a little bit of clarification so that manufactured homes aren't coming in and removing their chassis and putting it on the slab and saying it's a modular home, you know, and then vice versa, modular homes, you know, being left in such a way that makes it look like a
Yeah.
manufactured home.
Oh, that sucker's nuts. Yeah, I'm not debating that, but that's interesting.
Yeah, and so, you know, going back to that first page, it's kind of, that first column, everything that's highlighted yellow, this is what the UDO proposes and how they would regulate manufactured home.
What about a stick-built house on cinder blocks? So it's built on site, normal stick-built house, but no foundation, crawl space, but it has cinder blocks.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how your city and local unit of government defines that, I mean, for us, I would say that was site built.
Yeah.
I mean, it would qualify just like any other modular site built home.
We might just want, it's that, and then maybe it's called out, maybe it's not silent in the actual EDO, but under this paragraph here for site build, it doesn't specify, I know Kim brought that up. Like,
Sure.
well, shoot, my house was built on site, but it has a crawl space underneath it, not a.
And I think that's the definition. If it's built on site, it's site built, and I think that one is, I mean, we could probably add a little more color to it, but I think that one's pretty straightforward. It's that kind of nuance between a manufacturer and a modular home, especially when we're talking about zoning. If we say modular homes are allowed everywhere, that a normal site built home will be, then someone is gonna pull in,
Push the envelope.
it's push, yeah, exactly. We gotta be able to have solid ground to stand on.
Build it on the rock.
Well, and so again, that's why I try to provide this, is to highlight this. We need to be very clear and concise.
Mhm.
When we do start specking out this zone, what are the implications of that?
So would a site built home is gonna have plant, well, no, I mean, I guess a modular home would have plans too.
They're just, the modular homes are more standardized, the pieces are stamped out. fit together like a big puzzle.
A site-built home should have a foundation plan, so should a modular home have a foundation plan?
Well, again, they're pretty much terminating the same thing.
If they're treated as a site-built home,
Then it should have a foundational plan associated with it, whereas a manufactured home would not.
Well, if they have a slab, they're gonna have to have some type of foundation plan.
Right.
So, I mean, the way they address it, I mean, it's saying that modular homes are built with those designs and standards as a dwelling unit with the foundation when connected to the required utilities.
With the foundation.
Foundation is a
That's kind of vague. Is it a slab or is, like you said, is it blocks?
Yeah.
You can build a
But-
block, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with either one.
yeah.
Yes.
we just want to make sure that both are okay within the code.
Well, I would think I mean, we could go in and amend that definitions and include
Yeah.
that. We can do whatever we want.
Right.
I mean, here we come in here, and they got the blocks set up, the ends are taken out of the blocks, and they drive that sucker in there, set it on the blocks, all the utilities in there, block it up, done.
Yes.
Take the wheels out, and what do we call it, a modular home?
I know, that's the one,
That,
that's,
I mean,
that's where we're
I can
ended
see
up.
it.
Yeah,
I mean,
people will definitely.
I don't think that's a modular home. I mean, that's a manufactured home in my opinion. They brought it in on wheels, now that's just my opinion.
So what is a modular home?
I don't know.
It's a,
Hey,
it's a
I'm almost
permanent
thinking-
dwelling that cannot be moved. So it has to be permanently attached to the foundation somehow.
So a flat slab.
Well, no, what, a crawl space house, you can stick build a crawl space house as a site-built home.
Outside,
But my-
Yes.
we're not on site, but we're talking, what is a modular home?
Right.
So,
But we're making sure that the cinder blocks, with cinder blocks, it's not gonna be attached to a slab, but it's still a site-built house. Like all my utilities underneath all my pipes are.
As a
just-
dwelling unit.
Sure, it's on crawl space.
Yeah,
I completely understand that, but what I guess I'm saying is, I think in my view of it, a manufactured home is a guy that pulls in there in a big truck
yeah,
with a hitch on the back of it, drives in between blocks,
Drops it off.
drops it off, that is a manufactured home.
Yeah.
I not disagree.
And that's what I feel.
The question is though.
What
is
is
a
a modular?
home?
Who knows?
To me, a modular home is when they bring those in like pieces.
That's my,
Ah,
And put
put them,
together.
that's right. I
okay.
agree with that.
And it is it's the puzzle is put
Yeah,
together.
they put the walls together at a manufacturing facility, put it on a big truck, bring it here, this wall goes over here, oh, this is A, this is B, that goes together
Yes.
on either a crawl space or a slab.
That to me is a modular.
Manufactured homes have the option of being permanent or movable.
That's correct.
Whereas a modular home does not. Once it's assembled,
Yes.
it's there.
Because you see.
You don't have the option to pick it up and move
I
it.
think something saying permanently attached to foundation or something along those lines
I do too.
would probably help,
Suffice.
yeah.
I do too.
Well, let me throw something else. My house was moved in, but it's a site-built home.
Is it built and moved it, like house moves
Oh, yeah.
and stuff?
Yeah, it was.
I think that would mean-
It was probably in.
That's still
Still a site.
site-built home.
that's a mobile.
It's a recreational vehicle. Oh.
Site-built home.
Mobile site-built home.
Just had to throw that in.
Put that on by.
And again, I mean, the line get blurred, so trying to clearly define what's what, it can be a challenge.
Yes. No, it was good stuff. I mean, I would advise having something, because it says with a foundation, I think something like permanently attached to the foundation, with just a little bit of extra language there to say that it's not gonna be moved.
Yeah, and it's not necessary to be attached to a foundation if it's on the cross walls.
Well, I would say it's still attached to that foundation.
There
Yeah,
is no foundation.
Well,
well, if it is, if it's a block,
I can't think of anywhere under my house where it's attached to a block. It's all gravity. It's just sitting there.
well, that's dangerous. Hope the big wind doesn't come by, the tornado comes.
Well, a tornado comes in, you don't matter if it's.
Well, you know,
attached to the
even in blocks, they have foundations, they fill those blocks and bolt them to the foundation.
I'll have to look at mine. I don't think.
Because there's usually a resting plate on there.
I think it's just wood beams on blocks.
but yours is a site-built home
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean,
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing that's really distinguishing modular versus manufactured is a chassis.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a chassis, it's manufactured. If you don't, you can default
Okay.
back to a site.
I agree with that.
okay, I guess we can,
And the construction,
now,
Yeah, if you got two beams down there and there's still brackets,
Does it
won't
have
hold
a
your
tone?
wheels on there, your axle. That's it.
so. Oh, never mind. It's just manufactured homes are built on permanent chassis as well.
That's really the only true difference I see in the verbiage usage.
Yeah.
But all that being said, going back to that first page is kind of where we get into the nitty gritty.
Cluster.
So-
6,000 square feet minimum cluster.
So we're looking at the lot sizes, and again, there's a lot of information to digest, but I try to break it down. The very last page goes into design standards for manufactured homes, so we can extract some of this, but they do define what a manufactured home is. I didn't want to play that card until after we had already talked it all out. So some of this stuff is in there. But the next to the last page, when we look at the first page, it goes A through M. When you look at the picture that has the diagram, it also has A through M, so we're talking about lot width setbacks and all this stuff. It illustrates where this is as a reference point. So when we're looking at A,
Yeah.
it'll kind of diagram that out for you, so we know precisely what we're talking about. But the UDO is proposing as a lot size for a manufactured home, 6,000 feet, minimum. And our current code provides 5,000 feet minimum.
So cluster is just lot size?
Yeah. Because it goes down further to break it down into subdivision and then actual mobile home parks below that. So they're basically carving out all three of those in one zoning policy. So I figured we'd just start with the residential side of it first. So we're looking at a difference between 6,000 and 5,000 on lot size. Is manufactured home part, and our current code is not defined. That's separate. We're talking about just individual manufactured homes right now. So the UDOs is suggesting we increase that size by 1,000 square feet per lot. More yard space.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I like the extra details for the subdivision, the mobile home park.
So, any concerns on increasing it from 5,000 to 6,000?
not from me.
Not for me.
Nothing for me.
So when they're talking about subdivisions, we're kind of consistent. I'm really trying to wrap my head around anywhere I've actually seen a manufactured home subdivision, and I can't outside of a manufactured home park. I've seen those, they're everywhere. But an actual subdivision, I just can't see it. I've not personally seen one.
Larger cities.
But there are provisions that would allow for that, and they're looking at a 4,400 square foot minimum lot size if you subdivide. And then our current code says if you are going to have a subdivision, it shall be at least 5 acres. So some of the stuff's not always gonna allow us to tip the tap. We even want to entertain the idea.
I'm not even interested in entertaining, but that's just me personally. I don't see a place in
I
it.
can see a place for a mobile home park, excuse me, manufactured home park, see, I did it myself. I can see at least having that as an option, a tool in the toolbox, but a subdivision of that.
Yeah, I don't see why would you define that, because you got these now called modular homes. You know, they've already defined that, you know, so why would you have a subdivision? You're right, on this.
I mean, if it were me, I'd say we strike the subdivision component, and we either allow them individually,
I agree.
or we allow them in their own park, which are that separate set of requirements and lot size.
Ken, do you disagree?
Do not.
So we'll strike the subdivision. And so our current code allows for subdivision of manufactured homes, talking about 5 acres. Again, we've got it, we don't use it, it's not on play. Lot widths, 50-foot minimum. Our current code provides 50-foot minimum, so it's a wash there. Anybody see any reason to modify that?
No.
So the UDO does provide, if you've got a manufactured home that's greater than a story, or you got rear parking, then you can have a smaller lot versus 50, you can take it down to 42. That's something that we leave it. I'm trying to again envision rear parking in an alley, and we don't have anything like that in the city, really. But we can also look at future development. We want to start encouraging alleys and rear parking.
I don't see a need for that. I mean,
And again, just because it's here doesn't mean we have to allow it. This could be like permitted conditions, something that would have to go for planning, or we can leave it, or we can strike it. And just say, hey, if you're gonna have a manufactured home, it's 50 foot. That's your lot size.
Yeah, I think
Or
that's,
lot width, excuse me.
that's one of those KISS things, keep it simple, stupid, you know? It's I think 50 feet, just leave it like that.
right,
Simple.
So we'll eliminate the 42 foot if you park in the rear. If you want to park in the rear, that's fine. You still got a 50 foot lot.
Right. No arguing about what constitutes a half story or anything like that. If I put a bathroom in the attic, so like 42 foot long, you know what I mean? You know you're gonna hear it.
So we are on manufacturing.
Okay,
So we're kind of just now getting down into C.
okay, thank you.
So our current code doesn't prescribe any conditions for the depth of the lot. The UDO is proposing a 100-foot minimum.
Your thoughts,
We regulate the width of the lot, but the depth is not.
your thoughts.
I try to shy away from recommendations. Again, y'all are the appointed officials.
I don't know.
I got you.
I don't
Double
call
the
it,
width.
Pardon me?
It's, go ahead.
I don't call it a recommendation, Chris, I call it educating us.
Professional.
Yes.
You're a stamp, you're a sub.
I'm telling you, Chris has done an excellent job of all of this. I value his opinion, and I would dare say I would like for you to share what your opinion is. Again, the commission could take it under advisement. They may agree with you, they may not, but you are a content expert, is the way I look at it.
In project management, we always have subject matter experts who come
Exactly.
in and they provide their expertise and then we'll make a decision.
Exactly,
Based on all the
exactly.
information, so.
So that being said, if we're looking at development standards, we go back to the book on page 40. I would suggest we evaluate the lot depths for every other zone to see kind of where we're at. Right now, it's not regulated with our current code.
If we do anything for regular homes, since these are supposed to be treated as site-built homes, then
Well,
I don't think that lot depth.
So this wouldn't be, this wouldn't be treated, we're not talking site built or modular, we're strictly just talking manufacturing as far as how this is applied. The lot depth, I would suggest if we're trying to grow the city and have uniformity, then I think we start with the lot sizes. And if right now, we don't have any regulations. You can have as deep as lot as you want. And what we're saying here is at least 100-foot minimum on any new lots that would have a manufactured home.
Well, let me ask you a question. So, now again, this is in confines of inside the city limits
Yes.
and inside, or would it be, individual lots? Or is this going to be like a, mobile home park?
So we haven't got to the part yet.
Okay, so
we're
it's
talking
just
about
individual.
individual manufactured
All right,
homes.
let me ask you a question on this. Let's say that someone had the money and, they bought 5 acres somewhere within the city limits.
Mhm.
And that actually could happen. So when you say a maximum of, lot depth, that says
Minimum.
200, minimum.
Minimum.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misread it. I'm sorry, forget what I said.
So this is just trying to ensure that we have a minimum yard size.
Yes.
Minimum.
I like it just because it's 100, 100, 100, 100, 100 across the board. And back to KISS.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it simple. That's probably about from here to the senior center, it's a third of a football field is what we're talking. So it's not massive, but it's enough to.
Well, the setback would be the same as a house, correctly? Correct?
As far as how it applies in the UDO, we've got a whole bunch of different residential
Okay.
zones, so I
Okay,
can't
so we'll-
quickly answer that right now.
Well, because it says right here, you've got the rear, the side, the street, the side, front, it's being 25 feet, minimum. But again, we'll just wait until we handle that.
Sure. So I would suggest that for the sake of not having these tiny lots, and if somebody were to develop something else in a manufactured home in the future, they would have a sufficient lot size to do something other than a manufactured home. So I think having these minimums for future development.
Very wise, yeah.
What one of the zones you looked at, like a patio home or tiny home?
Yeah, so
Could have special.
zero lot line stuff, and, you know, those are things that we can absolutely do. So there's so much to digest, so I just picked out the two at the
Yes.
top, and we're just kind of working through that.
Absolutely.
You gotta start somewhere.
Sure.
You sold me on the lot depth.
And I think that's worth, is again, part of, hopefully, the intent of planning and zoning is to be forward thinking. And as these lots change hands and we look at future development, we should be sure that our lots are big enough to accommodate something else.
I know for several places, outside of the county that we used to call them tear downs, that people are buying those, older homes that have been dilapidated, have gone in and bought it, they're tearing that down and building some really nice houses. Going back to you want it to have, that to occur if down the road. So yeah, the 200 minimum would help out.
We're talking 100 million.
100,
I mean,
but
100
yeah.
minimum, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yes.
I like
So
that.
in comparison, when we look at the neighborhood residential, they got 100-foot minimum. And I think if that's our goal to eventually put some kind of site-built home on it, we should do that. Yeah, we'll move on.
Okay.
Building coverage, they're saying you can use 60% of your lot. Where currently in our R1 MH zone and our manufacturing park zone, that's not regulated. Excuse me, I read the wrong one. It is regulated. It's 40, so we're increasing the available use of that lot.
I agree with that one.
Yeah, definitely. Give people more options with the land,
The carports, accessory buildings, stuff like that.
a shop, you know, their land, go do something like that.
Impervious surface coverage, driveways, gravel lots, stuff like that, 70% maximum. You can't just pave over your entire lot.
Right.
You gotta be at least 30% with grass and soil.
Like the desert, tires on the houses, all stone or cement.
See, I'm of the opinion you should be able to use 70% of that lot to build on, you know, that type of thing.
We're
But
pretty
I-
close. We're on 10% off.
We went up 50%.
That's right, that's right. Hey, we're headed in the right direction. Yeah, that's good, that's good.
You got a 50% raise there.
Yes, absolutely.
I agree with the 70%.
It wasn't regulated before, but a lot of the things in our current zone.
Right.
Yeah,
The things that we have regulated versus what we haven't is interesting. Why we chose to hone in on some things and not others. We'll leave that. Really kind of in comparison, that's kind of a moving target when you look at the rest of the zones. Goes from 50 to 60 to 70 to 80, even all the way up to 90 for impervious surface coverages.
for commercial.
But it's all over the zone. I mean, there's a lot of zones to consider. But if we're relating this to residential, 60 to 70 to 80, that's kind of where we're at. So we're out in the ballpark. Setbacks, everybody's favorite topic, right? So UDO is expecting a 20-foot minimum. And I would propose, since we struck the rear parking in section B, we should do the same here.
Agreed.
Because we've got, they're saying you can do a 15 if you park on the rear, and if we're just, let's be consistent.
Yes.
And I'm gonna delete the 15 minimum if rear parking. So our current code provides a 15-foot setback for manufactured homes, and we're proposing to move that back an additional 5 feet to the building.
Agreed.
Bigger front yard. Now, I'm just kind of scooting over to the manufactured home park, since we're already on section F, setbacks. The minimum setback from any property line shall be 25 feet, or in a manufactured home park. That's our current code. So we won't have two zones when we go to the UDO. We will just have one definition that will fit individual manufactured homes and manufactured home parks. So let's think about this in the terms of a manufactured home park. Is 20 foot sufficient? Our current code says 25. We're going to take 5 feet away. But on the one-offs, we're increasing it. On the park, we're decreasing it.
How does that work in a park? Off the center line of the road? I'm kind of thinking about some of these parks where road goes back and it just drives, so that's the center line?
So
Or
there's some additional verbiage in here that kind of describes the design criteria for a mobile home park. Orientations can't, as far as pulling off on primary roads and stuff like that. I don't think I included that in this. But that would be part of the design process, and anything like that's commercial development that has to come before the planning commission. So those concerns absolutely are in the review process. But I do know there is some verbiage in here as far as the orientation of the home, that your front door, your outside of that home has to face the street. Can't do any more sideways, vertical stacking in the manufactured homes.
Oh, really?
They all have to be front facing to the road.
So parallel to the road.
Yeah, so no more of the odd shape,
Right.
odd orientations. So any new homes will have to face the street. That's a requirement in here as well.
Up before we're in Virginia.
Yeah. But what we're proposing now is a 20-foot minimum setback for one-off manufacturers and manufactured homes in a park. 20-foot setback.
So change that from 25 to 20.
So this will be the current code. So
Right.
We're not gonna modify that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make sure, because the UDO only provides the 20-foot for both of these.
Okay, well, then we had already scratched off that rear parking part.
So I'm just making sure we're all okay for 20-foot across the board.
Yes.
I'm good.
The interior setbacks. attached, detached, our current code 75.
Let's give 15 feet between structures for emergency vehicles if need be, right?
Yeah, and if you go less than 15 between two structures, you gotta have fire rated walls.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if they start getting that tight, 15 foot is a very good minimum. And
We don't want to get into having to monitor all that.
Mhm.
So 7.5
we
should
can
be.
self-police it through zoning.
Yeah. But that 15 feet is a minimum, unless we go into the next step, next plateau on fire safety.
Yeah, well, so are we talking about, all right, so when we're talking about the interior, if we're looking at an interior, we got house.
Yes.
7.5, that's gonna collectively make that
15.
15.
Right, that's what I was referring to.
And then below, we're talking about a side street angle, they're still
Yeah.
requiring that 15.
15 minimum.
Even if you're not hitting another
Right.
house. So 15 all the way around, regardless if you're on a corner lot or in an interior lot.
Question, this goes back a minute. For the orientation of the manufactured home, so if this is the street, this is my manufactured home, you're saying it's like this or like this?
Now, the front door has to face the road.
So the question is, how wide are these homes? Because if, say, they have a 50-foot lot,
It's typically like 8 by 40.
so that's not gonna
You
be,
got a good point there, because some of them 65 feet.
that's gonna, if they have a 50-foot lot,
These new ones are much longer.
there you are.
So, yeah.
Well, we're talking minimums here too, so.
Yeah, but if I bought a 50-foot lot and it's 100 feet deep, then if I turned my home, it would fit just fine, and I would be within all the bearing, or I would be within the ordinances for setbacks on front and side, but this one I would not be.
No. And again, my recommendation on that, the front, we call it out the side, the front of that home facing the road.
Right.
And just talking as public safety makes my life a whole lot easier.
So then we would have to enforce, if somebody wanted to buy a 50-foot wide lot, we would have to tell them, hey, if your intent is to put a manufactured home on there, you have to go by the setbacks, you're gonna need a lot that's wider than 50 feet if you have a 40 or 50-foot home, because you still got to have 7.5 solid
Well,
on each
you
side.
gotta subtract 15 feet right off the bat.
Exactly.
7.5 on each side, and
Yeah,
it's
a
50.
40-foot wouldn't fit,
Well, you're talking about a 35-foot then.
yeah,
You know, when you subtract all that from a 50-foot
exactly.
lot, if that's what, you know, we've got to have
You got a 35-foot.
parallel to the street.
And these are minimums.
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
Yeah, we would just have to make sure that people knew, you buy this property, you cannot put anything larger than the 35.
But you know how that is. Nobody's going to go investigate that.
Well, and I
They're gonna be
will say,
upset.
from like, even just our new business partner here at Clayton Homes, I get quite a few phone calls from Clayton Homes before they close on a sale of a home. They will call.
Inside the
They ask for
city.
the zoning, they ask for any permits, they ask if this is going to be permissible.
So they do call?
They do their homework before they close the
Well,
deal.
that's good.
And I can't speak for all of them, but I do know Clayton Homes does that.
Yeah, and I mean, individual buyers, if they're just moving, they may not, but they, you know,
But you got a good point there.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I'm just glad to hear that they're contacting you.
yeah.
And most of the time, it's outside the city limits, but they still call, because
Okay.
it's Mayflower zip code, so they'll call.
Can we put something in the ordinance, maybe that, you know, just gives a note, you know, that says, you know, note, all setbacks are required for manufactured homes, so.
Well,
Accordingly.
I think there's a conversation for non-conforming lots too, right?
Yeah.
We've got a ton of them in this town.
We just did a variance, 2 meetings ago, for that odd shaped Pentagon thing that they bought, that,
Over on Robbins.
yeah, it wouldn't fit because it's just a weird shaped lot, so,
Was that for a stick build home? Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, they wanted to build a stick-built home,
Yes.
but they couldn't meet all the,
Right.
all the setbacks and offsets.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Way, it had like a point at the end and stuff, so, yeah, so we gave them variance.
And a street on 3 sides of the house.
Right, yeah, it was a goofy setup, so we gave the variance, so they built.
And I would think, the UDO addresses non-conforming lot use. I think it's reasonable to make some kind of accommodation. If you got a parcel
Yeah.
that it doesn't meet any of the minimums in our code, then we should be able to have some leniency in that.
We still want them to build or whatever on it. So.
Yeah.
But if the option is there, then we're not gonna grant you a variance just because you want it this way.
No.
If you literally cannot make any visible accommodation to whatever you're trying to do, then that's a conversation we'll have.
Yeah,
Again, I'm glad that Clayton Homes is contacting you
yeah, that's great.
for this.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's probably been burned or something, or someone's tried to move it home.
Sure.
and
Well,
found out that it-
can you imagine buying one of these and then you find out when you go get a permit to install them, oh, you can't do that?
Yeah.
You know, what are you gonna do? You're going back to the
Well,
dealer and
they-
say, hey, I need my money back because I can't do this. Well, they're trying to avoid that, it sounds like.
Sure, it's probably been burned by that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Put this procedure
Yes.
in place as we.
But again, I'm glad that they're contacting you.
Absolutely.
That's the first I've heard of that, so, hey, I appreciate that.
And here's something, we have a rezoning that's gonna be coming at the planning commission meeting. We're going to rezone over there on Crafton to
Yes.
R2 for a duplex. And I told the lady, and it's contingent on buying the property if they can get it rezoned. But I told her also and gave her the particulars that were in the right there for R2. I said, study this and make sure that what you're wanting to put on there is gonna fit the purpose.
Is it going to be a mobile home park?
No, it's gonna be duplexes.
Oh, duplexes. That's from Kevin Dillon,
Over there in that area, and they're buying it on
off
this
of
craft.
Crafton. Yes, that goes all the way down to the water, to the lake.
I don't believe this does me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's, the property belongs to Tony Long.
Oh,
over
okay,
there,
so-
but it's over there in his,
Okay.
in that area, the
Yes, ma'am.
Dillons.
Yes.
But I told them, I just happened to think, you want to put duplexes, but these are the setbacks and all
Right.
the lot coverage and everything, so.
Well, I don't know if that's, R2 over there right now.
No, they wanted.
They're applying for.
They're going to have to,
Next meeting.
yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
She has done all of the homework for the rezoning and we'll have a public hearing. But that's what I was telling her, just because it will be rezoned or possibly rezoned, read the requirements for R2.
Yeah.
For the coverage of the lot and.
Yeah.
Cause are you wanting to put one duplex or two or?
How many acres? Do you remember?
She said it was 4 lots, I believe.
Okay.
There's some old mobile homes on there right now, I believe, and they're gonna take them off and put,
Yes, ma'am.
two duplexes, I'm assuming, but I thought, if they're planning to do 4 duplexes on 4 lots.
Well, she would have to come in with a scaled drawing,
Right,
for us,
But
to show the
here-
council.
then they were contingent upon buying it, if it could be rezoned.
Right.
But I thought, okay, it gets rezoned and she pays for it and then she
And then
comes
she
to
can.
us.
Yeah.
So I thought, that's why I gave her all that paperwork.
Good.
I said, just,
It's, we can rezone it all day if she doesn't meet the. zoning
exactly,
requirements.
but it just dawned on me, sometimes just a little bit of information
Well, and,
would be just like what you're talking about with, you can't get that mobile home.
well, but again, I appreciate you offering that other information to these people because, again, okay, I'm gonna get it rezoned for R2 or whatever for multi, okay, well, yeah, hey, I'm set, and then you go back in, oh, I can't do this? Yeah.
And I'm kind of nosy because I said, I'm assuming these are duplexes, how many duplexes? Because this is what you need to.
Right. Yeah, that's, thank you.
Because I don't want somebody being happy if it's spending money.
Sure.
Yeah, that's real.
I don't know.
Setbacks, G, So, we're looking at side interior. So our current code provides 7.5 feet, UDO is proposing 7.5 feet. The only difference would be in the manufactured home apartment. Our current code requires 25 feet setback from any property lines. Again, that'd be the only distinction. So the UDO would allow 7.5 feet on the side interior lot. Current code says 25. For mobile, for a manufactured home apartment, we don't have.
Do you know why the 25-foot was selected? Is that a fire code or safety issue?
I think it was, I can't speak to how our codes came to be. I wouldn't even try to hazard a guess.
But the 25-foot isn't anything that you require from the fire code?
15 is my minimum.
I'm good with how it's proposed here, 7.5.
Well, and I think what we need to remember, we've got issues right now of people meeting the setback, but then they've got a RV that's parked there. Then they've got enclosed trailers that's parked behind that. And if it's one thing to be going down the road and it's you're not in a curve, okay? But we can take you over to several of them that it's blocking this from a safety standpoint. I'm glad to see that it's 25 feet back, because if these places that had a minimum of 15 feet or this type of thing, you're going to be obstructing view if it's in the right location. So that to me, the 25 foot, it just depends on what everybody wants to do. But this doesn't surface until you have a problem. Anyway.
Well, again, so the
That was
25
for
foot
park.
rule is only in a mobile manufactured home park.
Yeah.
And
That would put 50 feet between.
two manufactured home parks. Try.
I'm so used to that.
And again, these facilities in this zoning don't exist for us right now, and it's not on the horizon as far as I know. So, when we do have a petitioner wanting to put in a park, then we can take a harder look at this.
There are already some people that have been looking, okay, but have not come forward on some property around. But there are definitely some people that are looking at a mobile home park.
But essentially, the way our current code would be, we're talking 25 foot from every property line.
Yeah, I think that's a lot. I mean, that's 50 feet for two homes.
I mean, if you're wanting to shy people away from putting in parks, it's not a bad idea too, though, I mean, right?
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be a lot less.
Yeah, and the density would be a lot less. I mean, so somebody might not want to build one, because they would need lots.
Well, that definitely is going to be an issue, because that's what we ran into with the first development. They gave us an ultimatum. They wanted to go from, basically the lots were like 60, 65 feet, and they wanted to shrink them down to 50 feet, all of them. I said, no. And they said, okay, well, we're not going to build them. I said, bye.
See, next developer will. It did.
So,
And going back to your previous point, I mean, we could put something regarding non-conforming lot use in the orientation of home. So if you got we can add some verbiage that there's a mechanism to petition planning if you need to adjust the orientation of your home to fit a non-conforming use. I think that would be something appropriate.
I mean, if you look at the interior setbacks of these other ones, I mean, for agricultural, it's 15. Low density, it's 7.5. Neighborhood, detached, 5 minimum. So, I mean, they are tight.
Now, the way the UDO, if memory serves, when we're talking about a manufactured home park, we're not talking about the opposite side facing the road. You can change the orientation. And what we would consider a typical manufactured home park. So you can have them go vertically or whatever way best suits that development.
in a park, they're going to put them the short, so they can gain as much acreage as possible.
So there are provisions for that.
I've never seen a park where they're all like that.
No, because they're wanting to utilize that property.
Absolutely, yeah.
So as it would sit right now, on that interior setback, we're treating those like any other home, 15-foot minimums.
I'm good with that.
So that will take care of line item H as well. We're just saying 15 foot, whether it's an interior or you're on a corner lot, 15 foot is going to be your setback. Rear, same thing, 15. That's our current code is 15, say for a mobile home or manufactured home park. Again, the current code says 25 feet. But we can streamline that and keep it consistent with everything else and have it be 15. Property line coverage.
So we are changing that from 25 to a 15?
So we're not proposing to amend the current codes. This is our current stuff.
Okay.
We're just making sure that
The 15
is what we're
minimum.
proposing for both of these zones.
Okay, gotcha.
Property line coverage is not regulated across the board. I say we leave that alone. Stories and height. It's an interesting one. So, two-story manufactured homes. UDO will allow that. Our current code says 1.
Clayton Homes have 2-story?
I was gonna say, I don't remember seeing a 2-story.
Maybe
they do make them.
Maybe not here because we're so tiny, but in big cities, I'm pretty sure that that's a thing.
For a single family unit,
Yeah.
2-story?
Well, to transport it, you can't have that second story on it. It's got to be lifted up by crane and attached on site.
Says two-story manufactured homes, also known as modular homes, are available. These are often constructed in a factory, then transported to on-site. Common layout features communal spaces like living and dining room and first floor, and private spaces like bedrooms on the second. So they absolutely do make.
Do they just mix manufacturer and modular? Sound like it.
So it definitely, I was pretty sure that I'd seen them around the country, but maybe just not the market here.
Yeah.
I think single story, personally, just because I don't know, you're so tight anyways with the setbacks and everything, you go 2-story, I mean, I don't know.
Well, if you need a 2-story, you probably need to go in stick built.
Yeah.
As far as that goes.
I wouldn't, that wouldn't be my first choice.
No.
Is to have 2-story manufactured homes.
Yeah, I agree. Just single story.
Yeah, I'm just looking, again, public safety, the number of these
That's what it
facilities that I enter. I would not try to specify a second story of one of these, it
Right.
was burned.
No.
They're gonna contain after that point.
I'm just not inclined to go vertical on one of those.
1-story?
Yes.
Greens? All right.
So we're changing that to 1-story.
Yep.
Okay. I think that makes sense.
Other structures, 35-foot max, I don't really know, what they're referring to as far as other structures. I really don't.
RV.
I'm sorry, what?
Trying to think of a structure, in a manufactured home area that would be 35 feet, it's like an RV garage or something.
A structure, maybe a ham antenna, something out there, or
But now we're talking about.
We've got
man,
antennas. already.
416 it says.
have a
It
structure.
doesn't really address what other structures might be. You get any example.
Exterior mobile.
Well, should we just eliminate other structures, 35 maximum?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I think so. Yeah, I
I think it's
mean, what could that be?
Confusion, yeah.
Well, so we look at all the other residential zones, they have, provisions for other structures in every zone,
Well, now,
residential.
but in residential stick built, to me, that's that's just a two-story, whatever, townhouse or a house or whatever. But if we're looking at
Manufactured home.
manufactured homes,
Well,
what do you think?
one thing that comes to mind would be unless they're referencing an accessory building, a shop or a shed.
It doesn't need to be 35 feet.
No, not at
Case,
all.
I mean,
Not at all.
a little shed is 35 feet.
I'd say scratch it.
Absent any other examples, I'm kind of hesitant to leave that in.
Yeah, not even sure what that would refer to.
So I would say strike it, and I'll try to do a little research on that, just to, and I email Metro Plan, just to kind of get their idea of what they refer to as.
Big quality.
But 35 feet is pretty tall for an accessory building.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have accessory dwelling units like mother-in-law quarters and caretakers cottages in a manufactured setting.
Right. Getting a deer going and hunt for 20 acres at 35 feet.
So building frontage type's not regulated, and the building entrance location, is not regulated. Want to say when we were looking at the building entrance, that's what they referenced, the alpha side, the front of the building, what we were talking about earlier. They put a pin in that one, just to come back to that, if it's referencing the front door.
Alpha side, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's fireman coming off. And I very well could be getting my different model codes, mixed up, but I'm virtually certain UDO referenced the front door being to the street. But we can leave that alone, I have not had it regulated, so we can kind of proceed as we discussed earlier. Keep the front door to the main road, and if it's a non-conforming lot, we deal with it as a one-off basis.
Yeah. What's the difference between building frontage height and building facade?
Yeah, to me, that's kind of a distinction within a difference I can't articulate right now.
Okay.
And I really didn't research it because it's not regulated,
Yeah.
not a one of them all.
Seems like it's the same thing, but if
They would say,
they
yeah.
called it out separately, maybe I was missing something.
So facades not regulated, glazing, windows, glass is not regulated. Sidewalks are, they do require at least a 3-foot sidewalk buffer and planting strip, as well as a 5-foot sidewalk. And we go down the planting strips to the various residential zones, and kind of buffer, it goes back and forth between 3 and 5. Sidewalks, pretty universal, 3 and 5. There's not a zone that doesn't provide for it.
I'm good with that. 3 and 5.
Encroachments over sidewalks, current code isn't regulated, UDO will not allow it. So no overhangs on carports, stuff
Agree.
like that. You gotta keep sidewalk clear.
Yeah.
Driveways, front, rear, side driveways are allowed. It goes in specifying the minimum driveway should be at least 25 feet. No more than a 22-foot sidewalk gap. Lots under 50, which will really, I don't foresee other than a park setting. Having lots under 50, driveways are only allowed off rear alleys.
Now, one of the things that, you know, that was passed not long ago, whether it be a mobile home or whatever, if it was placed, no more gravel driveways. It all has to be concrete or asphalt.
Yeah.
Just wanted to remind everybody of that.
Should we change the minimum front driveway length from 25 feet to 20 since the minimum setback is 20
Yeah,
feet?
and I was going back to try to look at that.
Alright.
I think 20 will be a reasonable correction there.
Eliminating the 25 foot, now 20 feet.
Yeah. Otherwise, their driveway would have to go 5 feet beyond the front of
Yes.
their house. Which is, might be cool, but don't want to regulate it.
Do we want to strike the verbiage for lots under 50, since we're pretty much just trying to get away from 50 period?
Yeah, we're handling those on one-offs.
Yeah, let's don't give them an option.
Try to avoid those.
And going, speaking of driveways, on page 77, it does go in great detail based on the zone, what the driveway regulations are.
I just remember that we, the council passed it, no matter where you are, if it's, even if it's mobile home, that's kind of concrete.
Except for agriculture, so
Yes,
agriculture
yes.
doesn't require.
Right, but it's inside the city limits, that subdivisions or wherever.
Parking and loading. So this is pretty much just relegating carports and garage requirements. Current code does not regulate parking or loading in residential settings. UDO will.
Drive-throughs. Is this, do you know if it's specific to like a commercial drive-through or someone that puts a semicircle in front of their home to pull through?
Let me look at 346 to see what they're referencing there. So the 346 drive-throughs are intensive auto loading uses. So they're referencing a commercial application.
Okay.
And drive-throughs are only regulated in the walkable town center and the neighborhood center zones.
Okay, great.
So the drive-through is really, it's not applicable, not an issue. Parking and loading, that's referenced in section 344, has to do with carports. They're saying you can have a carport, shall be located on the side or behind the primary structure. Carport shall protrude no further than 5 feet in front of the primary structure's front building facade. Carport shall be entirely open on one or two or more sides except for structural supports. Gives a little bit of some additional criteria, but it's your typical open carport.
If someone was gonna build a carport, do they have to come in and get I know you gotta get a permit, but does that have to go before the planning commission?
Not for a carport, not, they'd have to get a permit.
I know.
Meeting
The
the
only
setback
reason-
requirements.
Yeah, the only reason they'd have to come in front of us is if they
If it
needed
was-
a variance.
You're encroaching on those setbacks or side or whatever.
Do we need to spell out in this, you said that, you know, carport could be 5 feet in front of the principal structure. Should we have something in there that says, setbacks still apply? You know, minimum set, is the 20-foot or setback is still applicable? You know, if they meant 20 feet with their home, they can't put a carport 5 feet in front of that and only have a 15-foot offset from the road.
Well, I think, you know, that still kind of goes back to, I mean, we can add it, it would be redundant language, but when
But we
they're
don't need redundancy. If you think it's already, if you think it's,
setback to setback.
Yeah.
You know, and the carports are structured,
right,
so.
yeah, so I mean, they wouldn't be able to encroach on that
Right.
setback. So if it's already cut in here, not silent, someone can't come back to us and say, well, it's silent, so I get to do it.
And it does say carport shall be anchored and braced, can't be any more than 15 feet in height. So that would be the only, that's what section 344 is referencing, so it would be permissible, assuming the setbacks are met.
Come install by someone who knows what they're doing.
That would be fantastic.
You wouldn't want me installing. It might come up at the bird falls.
So we've already addressed drive-throughs, it's not applicable. Driveway sharing and cross-access, that's more for a commercial setting, and that's something that I will encourage that we continue to look at when we start approving some more densely packed commercial development, keeping a lot of the traffic off the main roads and encouraging cross-connection with driveways.
Yes.
Again, not applicable here, but if it's future use, the UDO does really encourage that, and I personally think that's a fantastic way to minimize traffic.
Yeah, it's really obnoxious when you go to dinner in Little Rock or Dennisville or something, and
Right.
you can't get, you pull into the wrong dang restaurant, and you can't get to the next restaurant you
Right.
need to be, because there's.
All of those should be connected.
Exactly.
Yes.
You gotta get back out on that
Yes.
success road, and yeah, it's obnoxious.
So the last piece is landscaping screening, and these are not a requirement, it clearly says it's a recommendation. That they install canopy trees every 30 feet in front yards, or street trees every 30 foot in a sidewalk buffer. And you can see the applicable landscape section in the UDO for additional details. Again, recommendations, not requirements.
Yeah, sometimes you can't do that. It took me 3 calls to 811 to find a circle this wide on Planet Tree, because they kept finding utilities everywhere I painted a white circle. They'd come out, they'd find utilities suddenly. It was like, I moved all over my yard and finally found a little hole
No kidding.
on an acre. It took me 3 calls on an acre to plant a small dogwood tree.
I say we regulate.
Are we good leaving that as a recommendation in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the
Required, just, we might not just be able to do it with all, so many utilities going underground now.
Depends on the location of the
Yeah,
property. Yeah.
yeah, if you're in the middle of town, yeah, I found it is just a landmine in my front yard.
The only thing that we,
Getting some up close to the mud.
the only thing that's gonna differ with this recommendation is our current code does have a requirement in manufactured home parks that, if your manufactured home park is near an R1 zone or an R2, you gotta have an evergreen screen and a permanent opaque fence of wood or masonry construction not less than 6 feet high between those 2 residential zones.
That's not a bad recommendation.
Plus the vegetation, is that correct?
Yeah. So they're allowing for a very healthy, visible barrier between the manufactured home park and the neighboring zones.
Is that for property value?
And I can't speak to why we inserted,
When, I know that's come up, I've experienced that
Yeah.
in some land purchases. It definitely is healthy. We don't have a delineation between one group, and I'm not saying that one group is worse or bad or that type of thing, but it does affect the property values.
Okay.
so I can say the UDO, when we're talking about commercial, industrial, or institutional uses, a manufactured home park would be a commercial use. It does compel a landscaping plan and plantings, to be submitted with your site plan for approval.
It's true, I didn't think about it being a commercial venture, but you're right, it is. Someone owns it and they're renting the lots to,
Manufactured home,
Park, yeah.
yes.
yeah, they've got tenants and everything. It's like, I didn't even really think about it as. a
Because you're
commercial
renting
venture,
the
but it is.
space.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you're making money off of it, so yeah, that would be commercial, that makes sense, I didn't, but.
So I feel like it's not explicitly regulated here, but elsewhere it is.
Once it came to the planning commission, we'd be like, oh, look, it's over here by this, residential area, you need this, so.
And then there's requirements that they maintain these things as they die, they gotta be replaced. You can't just build it one time and forget it, and they have to be maintained. So,
But if the tree dies, you just never remove it.
That happens.
kinda in a nutshell,
Frequently doesn't.
Yeah.
that, again, that last page, very quickly, is talking about design standards, for manufactured homes. And this is section A, dwelling shall be oriented such that the primary structure faces the street.
Right.
It's not explicitly on that grid, but elsewhere in the UDO, it does require that. And that's something we can add some language to non-conforming lots to have some sympathy for that, because we do have quite a few of those lots out there.
Yeah.
But they have to be set up and anchored, and it provides all the regulations underpinning, and even, you know, we would have the ability to, like we would any other home, go in and do an inspection, to make sure it's a proper home. Again, flooring structurally undamaged and secure, doors are plumbed, fully operational, kitchen, bathroom facilities are all in proper order. So if we're talking about bringing something in that's not new, we do have a mechanism to go in and make sure it's
Safe.
and it's up to code. Then that would be part of the permitting process. We've got some checks elsewhere in the UDO to kind of make sure they're okay. So, any questions on manufactured homes, not mobile homes, modular homes, all that good stuff?
No, I don't have any questions. Chris, you did a fantastic job in figuring this out.
Absolutely. I second that.
I appreciate that. I got one more quick one for you guys. This ain't gonna take 5 minutes, so if I can find my paper just before we go. As Mr. Snyder knows and the mayor knows, I've been going through our existing city codes, with some sense of, urgency to clean up very dated language in our code, conflicting issues in our code. And the planning commission is not immune from this, so food for thought, all right, very quickly. Section 13, or Title 13, Chapter 4, Section 1. Planning commission shall consist of 8 members. 2/3 of members shall hold no other appointed or elected municipal office. The chairman shall become the 9th member, but have no vote except to tie-break a vote of the remaining members of the commission. So the enabling clause, they're looking for 8 commissioners and a chairman, 9 total on the board. That it doesn't give an option for a minimum. This is what it shall be. However, when we get down to the subsequent paragraph, the chairman shall be the 7th member. And at first, now it's saying we've gone from 9 to 7 in 2 paragraphs. So we've got a conflict here where somebody's gone in and amended some things and
Reduced the voting members by 25%.
So,
6.
you know, you read 1 paragraph, we're short 3. You read 1, we're okay. So, I mean, again, there's some things that need to be cleaned up. As we look to fill vacancies, do we want to ensure that, are we gonna seat 8 or are we gonna seat 6?
Chris, was that in our codified ordinance?
Yes, ma'am.
It wasn't in the ordinance
No,
itself?
it's, yeah.
And the reason I'm asking is because it originally started out with the 7, and then during, the former Mayor Collins' term, we increased it. So that, what I'm saying is when they codified it, they maybe did not get that second paragraph in there, but that's why we've got the conflicting numbers.
Sure.
The,
So-
the intention of the codified ordinance, though, is not correct.
That was the latest amendment, was to increase.
Yes, the
it to 9
latest
total.
ordinance was for the numbers.
So that I think unless the ordinance needs to be amended, since that was the intention of the ordinance. that we
Well,
should-
and also you have to remember, Mark Hickman was the one that wanted to reduce, the number of members on the commission.
Right,
So.
but if it's codified, you can't do that.
Well, but everybody agreed with Mark. He's the one that led that. And that's when I was the chairman at that point in time. So, they followed, that's what we had to do.
Yeah.
That's why the only person that's got any kind of tenure, so to speak, is Chad. They agreed to leave Chad, but everybody else, got into this thing about every 2 years, you need to rotate somebody off. Well, the problem that we tried to communicate is that 2 years is nothing for you guys to be sitting on here. It takes so long to learn these. And let's face it, we don't have a line of people that are waiting to serve.
And most of us start at the same time. If we roll off in 2 years, you got
Exactly.
a commission.
Exactly. So that's how we got to where we are right now. And now that Steve is going to be rolling off. Did you tell us when your last date was?
Today.
That's what I was thinking.
He agreed to come to the workshop.
That's what I was thinking. I just wanted to clarify that. So we've got to do some talking about that.
Because if the spirit of that ordinance is 9, then we're out of compliance. And as a government body, we should probably not be out of compliance.
Well, yes. So we need to talk about that.
Yes.
And see what direction we want to go.
Not trying to stir the pot, I'm just, again, I'm going through every department. Conflicts.
Sorry about that, Mayor.
You're the one that spearheaded looking at this, what that process would look like to make sure it was being followed and
And that's what's on the books. I mean, that's
It
what
is.
they're, the
And that's
counselor is.
exactly what this exercise is about, is cleaning
Exactly.
up disparities, conflicting language, making it easier, someone would read that, then
Well,
they would have the question, are
Good.
you in compliance or not? And we would have to say, well, I don't know.
We're distinguishing between fact and opinion.
Yeah,
Our opinions were of X, Y, Z. Now we've got numbers that we've got to adhere to, or this has to be changed.
well, it hasn't been changed either way to
Yes.
make the 2 sections consistent.
Right.
But if the 2 sections revert to the old, what's the word I'm thinking of, configuration, where we only have 7, okay, then that's fine. But if it stays with 9, with what the last vote was, then we need to have commissioners.
Originally, when the planning commission was formed, it was the 7.
Yeah.
And you can change any ordinance by an ordinance. So whatever they do. And it's kind of sad to think that one person could determine, who stays and who has.
Well, if you'll remember, we had to go back and show the years that was on that and go back and look at it. But we had to eliminate some good people that had been on there for and had experience. They were there when these things happened, and they could add value to help explain what the thought process was at that point in time.
Yeah.
So, again, Chad is the one that's been on here for the longest. Yes.
There have been many instances in which I wish I could have pulled James or Sandy to see what their opinion was on things.
Exactly.
Because they had the institutional knowledge of,
Well-
this happened 10 years ago, so did it, this was the reason why.
Right.
And I do believe the planning commission members are recommended by the mayor and then
Yes.
by the council.
Right.
Except for the chairman. Chairman's appointed by the mayor.
Certainly is
and
good.
the council is informed.
Yes.
But the mayor is.
Yes, that's right.
We-
Ms. Delbert Dawson was the chairman for.
Yes, ma'am. But the bottom line is, we're trying to assemble a panel of people that are looking out for Mayflower,
Yeah.
for the good of Mayflower. So, and Stephen, thank you so much. Your check is in the mail. I can tell you, we got some problems with postal delivery here, and so it may, don't hold your breath, as far as that goes.
But you realize every time you come to one of these meetings,
That's right.
your hourly rate goes down.
But we wish you all the best. You've been a true asset
Thank you, Mayor.
to this commission, and we really appreciate it. We really appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it.
Well, we've enjoyed having you. So again,
You've earned your $4 an hour.
And I for one, hope you find your way back when things settle down.
That's right.
Life allows you to do.
Hey,
That's right.
and I'm absolutely open to that. Like,
Yeah.
once the kids get older and things kind
Well,
of settle down, I'll be back.
priorities take priority,
Absolutely.
so you.
Well, I was gonna say, there's people like, well, all right, well, come over here to, what's the the school council.
Yes.
They're like, you should
Come over there.
School board, yeah, school board. I'm like, wait a
You're
second.
like, I'm giving
Give
you
me some breathing room. Wife's the same way.
But you see why?
Yeah,
Because we don't have people standing in line that wants to serve on this.
absolutely, yeah.
You know,
Especially for the huge pay that,
so,
There's plenty on the sidelines that want to bark.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, half the time doing this job is awesome.
that's right. But again, thank you so much.
Yes,
We're
sir.
not trying to minimize your tenure, we do appreciate it. You've been a true asset to this,
Thank you.
to this commission.
I appreciate that. And I've enjoyed working with you even before you were mayor.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Okay, that's all we're going to say about it.
Yeah, I think so. So thanks, Stevie, for your service, man. And like the mayor says, door's always open. You've been a fantastic addition to this panel. You see things that the rest of us miss, so.
So when you see on Facebook that you weren't siding with the mayor and we eliminated you, don't take that. Just don't take that to heart. Consider the source. Consider the source.
Kick me out.
It's not outside the.
That's what I said. That's what I said. So, you know, don't be surprised.
Stephen didn't pay his monthly dues
Yeah.
to the mayor. So.
No, what's going to happen is the headlights is, Stephen did not vote like the mayor wanted, so he was.
They outed me. They outed me.
There was one more piece of paper that's regarding agricultural. We'll get that for the next one.
Okay.
Y'all just hang on to those.
It'd be funny if it weren't so true.
Well, wouldn't it be funny if tomorrow you see that?
My surprise face would be no.
I don't look at Facebook, so
I check and respond to things periodically as just usually the like absolutely crazy vulgar stuff.
I can't respond to those.
Oh, okay.
I used to go off.
Thank you.
but I got that.
I can't ignore it. I would thank you so much.
They would take me off.
That's how. People are like freaking Yankees on there.
Good to meet you, man.
My wife was like, "You got to stop."
If there's something that we can do for you, Stephen, it's a two-way street. Okay?
Calico Rock is.